Welcome back. On today's episode, we'll talk about starting in animation, teaching George Lucas about hyperspace, Hidden Figures, Castaway, and of course, working at Ralph's Supermarket. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and GUI operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating, the art of visual storytelling, and everything that goes with it. I'm here again at Panavision Woodland Hills, who have so graciously, as always, allowed us to use their theater, which sounds fantastic. I'm really excited today because I have, I think I can use the word veteran camera assistant, Tony Rivetti. I want to tell you, I looked up Tony on IMDb, and he has 221 credits, which I will not list off now, but the couple that I pulled out, which by no means are indicative of everything, Hidden Figures, Argo, Apocalypto, Black Hawk Down, Castaway, Contact, In the Line of Fire, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh, only because I think it's a hysterical title, The Last Waltz, and TV-wise, because I grew up watching these things, Buck Rogers, The Bionic Woman, The $6 Million Man. The list goes on and on. He's considered to be one of the best focus pullers in the business. Everybody knows of him. He's now retired, had a 48-year career that started in 1970, and I'm just totally thankful for you being here. Tony, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
So, Tony, tell me how you got here.
I started off shooting animation, and it was just a lucky break. I was working at Ralph's Market and had been working there for over 10 years. I was one of the assistant managers, and I was packing the car to go on vacation, and the phone rings at 8 in the morning. It was Donald M. Morgan. And Don, I had met just briefly. His wife was a sister of a friend of mine, and she knew I always wanted to get into business, and he had came up through animation and in lab work, and he knew someone who needed someone working shooting animation that had an art background, which I did. So I says, if you can meet me today at Wally Bullock's at noon, I said, I'll introduce you to Wally. So
Wally Bullock's was an animation house?
It was an animation camera house. We did optical effects, visual effects. We did traveling mats. We did all kinds of cartoons and cartoons for ads and commercials. And
was this back when it was some huge apparatus that the camera sort of sat in, and then there were,
Yeah, he sat. Either it was a Bold Richardson or an Acme camera. We had also an Oxbury, which later I advanced to shooting on an Oxbury. But we would do animation. We did a lot of stuff for Saturday morning cartoons. We'd get a lot of overflow. I mean, Thursday and Friday was horrendous. We'd work almost till 6 in the morning.
Any cartoons you can name?
Let's see. Skyhawk, Hot Wheels. Those some of the series. A lot of the Jay Ward stuff. Hanna-Barbera, Overflow. We did a lot of Overflow. Some of the studios couldn't meet their deadline, so they'd send it to Wally. We'd finish shooting some scenes, and somehow it was magically on Saturday morning cartoon. It was cool. Unbelievable.
It was like we're down to the wire kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely. He couldn't make a mistake. It was, It was the pressure was on. So we quickly unpacked the car and went and met him. The rest of the week was my vacation, and all week long I just worked as a gopher. I was picking up lunches, dropping things off, and cleaning the toilets, you name it. It was something, they wanted to see what I could take to work there. I had all the jobs nobody else wanted to do. So after a week, Wally says, listen, we'll put you on. I said, I can't guarantee you a full-time job, but you'll get 30 days. You'll be able to get in the local. So I said, great. So I managed to keep my part-time job, a job at Rouse at part-time. And they were annoyed I was going to leave them. And right away, they quickly offered me a managership at a market. And I says, no. I said, I really want to try this. I always can come back to this.
It makes me wonder how many great filmmakers are instead working at Ralph's because they took that they took that deal.
Actually, there's a few I knew that I met later on the job. Bobby Brown, the driver, Teamster captain. So, there's a lot of guys. Yeah.
And by the way, for anybody listening who's not in Southern California, Ralph's is like the huge supermarket chains.
Yeah, it was back. Back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, it was one of the big ones in California. I actually played on their baseball team, softball team with Richard Ralphs and Albert Ralphs. And
like the Ralphs brothers.
The brothers, yeah.
Wow. So you were like in at the ground floor.
Yeah, there was a handful of stores. There wasn't that many then.
Yeah.
So
wow.
yeah. So I shot at Wally Bullocks for a couple of years, and then it was a slow period, and he laid me off. But he says, I got a job for you in Santa Monica. Stephen Pozzesto, who was the owner of UPA Pictures, he did Mr. Magoo and a lot of other famous cartoon characters. He needed somebody to shoot animation, so I filled in that spot over there, and I shot there for about 2 years until I was getting to a point where I had to get back into a union shop. So I left there, went to Filmation, and then Wally hired me back part time, and then from there, a lot of guys when they went through Wally's ended up in live action. Don Morgan did, Bruce Jones, Mike Gershman. Wow. I trained Mike's younger brother, Jeff Gershman.
Oh, wow.
He came on later. Bruce Jones was one of the guys that trained me, and so many great guys there.
Back then, because it was a smaller world, did most people know most people? Did you kind of know everybody in the general?
Oh, yeah. The animation, doing visual effects animation was a very small world. Yeah. And often I would get asked to do something over at Able Productions or work over at Dixon Vaxu. We would fill in here and there, and because there was very few of us that knew how to do the job, and come in and finish a job, and that was highly technical at the time. So yeah.
So how'd you get into live action?
Well, as everybody knew, I'd love to get into live action. So I was kind of stuck there for a while doing the graveyard shift. I come at 6 in the evening to 6 in the morning, and I knew my wife wasn't getting happy about those type of hours. She wanted me home with the kids and helping out. So eventually I was able to get on with, actually Bruce Jones hired me on as his assistant, second, on Night Stalker. That was the first show I worked on.
It was a TV show.
TV show. But prior to that, Bruce told me, hey, you got to come over to Universal early in the morning when you get off work. Come there at the stage, and I'll show you what you have to do. So, for months I would go there to Universal in the morning after I finished my night job and learn how to set up the camera. And, it would come in these huge lungs that were towed around by these tractors and to all the stages, and you help the assistants set up the camera.
So this was back when there was a camera rental room or department or something, and they just gave you what that's where you got your gear from?
Well, I would meet them at the stage. What happens at Universal then, they had the camera department. So all the equipment would be loaded into these carts, and they'd be towed around in the morning before the crew got there. They would be dropped off at the stages. In the evening, they'd be picked up, brought to the machine shop for servicing and cleaning.
Every night?
Every night.
Wow.
Yeah, the cameras were cleaned every day at Universal, every night.
Wow.
I
had no idea.
Yeah.
And so when you worked there, that was the studio system essentially, right?
Yeah.
So did you work basically for Universal, and they said you go to this show, you go to that show, or did you actually work for the show?
No, I actually, you worked for that show, just that one particular show for Night Stalker. When I finally got hired, I just worked on that show. And so if you were there for 20 episodes, you were there for the 20 episodes, then laid off. But by that time, the gal who did all the hiring, she knew who everybody was and when they were so when they became available, if something else was coming up, she would move you on to that. So it was kind of nice. I stayed at Universal basically for almost a year and a half, 2 years, and I don't think I was a second assistant more than 8 or 9 months, and I moved up to first. And
On
then,
Night Stalker?
No, it wasn't on Night Stalker. It was $6 Million Man.
That's what you moved up on.
Yeah, Teddy Segura brought me on.
Were you on that for a long time? Or?
Yeah, I was on it for a season, and then from there I went to the woman, $6 Million Woman.
Bionic Woman was
Yeah,
called,
then in the late 70s or mid 70s, it was like Jen just kept moving me from one show to the next, and it was like I really didn't have to look for a job. She was just plant me here, plant me there. I worked all the series,
Yeah. I'm gonna stop you for 1 second because I want to ask you a question going back. You told me a story that I thought was pretty cool about someone you do. When you were working with the Oxbury, you did like USC film school credits. And
Wally Bullock, he knew where all the students at UCLA, USC, that they would be the next big filmmakers. So when they were doing their college projects or college films, we would do their end credits for them. And we would help them out because, we can make them steady. A lot of times, they're...
Do you remember some of the names of the people who came through there?
Yeah, Dan O'Banion, John Carpenter. Then we did stuff for George Lucas, and some of his projects.
I mean, these were 18, 19-year-old kids, right? They weren't.
Well, at that time, it was early 1970. I can't remember when they passed through. I remember doing work for them. Lucas had something very secretive that he was doing, and a group came in one evening and from USC, and they wanted to go shoot a scene. They wanted to know how can we go through space really quick, shoot through space. And I had been working with a lot of stuff trained by Dick Urasich. He had worked on 2001, so doing stuff for him, I learned how to do time lapse and shoot things, tracking through things. So I said, well, should we just put some star pattern up and put it, shoot it at 30 fields, and we can come down to 2 fields and shoot it at 6 frames a second. It would streak whatever pattern you put there. Maybe it would work. So, years later, I'm working at Fox on a show, and the employees get to see some of the new releases, and pretty soon there was something coming up that was called Star Wars, and I said, well, I'll see if I can take the kids there. So I got passes.
This is before it's in the theaters, right?
Before it's in the theaters.
Star Wars is Star Wars. Yeah.
So so my wife and I would take the kids. We go there. We're getting ready to see. We're watching the movie, and all of a sudden I see this hyperspace come, and I about jumped out of my seat. I remember that.
That's so great.
So it's so cool to be involved with something so tremendous and memorable as that one little shot of going through hyperspace.
Which is, I mean, now it doesn't seem like anything, but back then that was a big thing. And I just love the fact that it's, like you said, George Lucas is working on something secretive, and they come in and they go, hey, how can we do this? And like so much in the film industry, you're like, I don't know, maybe this would work, and you just try it and sort of see.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a really cool thing to have been a small part of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Bionic Woman, $6 Million Man, you're in TV, and then where did you hook up with specific people, or how did you? Yeah,
I worked with Enzo Martinelli for a long time, for a couple of years, and met Frank Biascaccio, which we did Buck Rogers, and so many DPs back then. And then finally I did a complete circle. I came back, and Don Morgan gave me a job working as assistant. And he was reluctant to hire me from animation because he only knew me as animation, and then heard I'd worked in live action and figured I was seasoned enough that he would hire me. And so we started doing some commercials, and then pretty soon we did a few features together, and that was kind of. And then I hooked up with Jerry Hirschfeld, did several films with Jerry. He was fun. He was I wouldn't say really fun, but he was really tough to work with. He was very regimental, and you could not screw up. You'd be out of it really quick.
He was a director of photography.
He was a director of photography. Yeah. He did Young Frankenstein and which I did the car with him. And Hector Figueroa was the Steadicam operator.
You told me some great stories about the car and Hector. So this is what the car must have been, because that Steadicam that you showed me, the picture that Hector's running around with. Hector Figueroa, operator, DP. I worked with him as a key grip, and a consummate character, I think. He was great. But he picked up a Steadicam in, what was that, probably 77, 78?
Yeah, 76 we did it.
76.
It was in Utah.
This was one of the first things, really.
One of the first big shows it was used on.
Yeah.
Garrett Brown used it on a few other things.
Yeah.
But it was one of the first big features at Universal.
And so early that the picture that you showed me was, I may be getting this wrong, I think it was called the Steadicam 35 or whatever, literally the first thing that was made was, where I think the camera was hard mounted to the top, right? And there was a spindle that went down the post that went to a motor, and the motor was on the bottom, and it turned it, so you couldn't take it apart, you couldn't do anything.
I'm trying to remember. No, I think it was. God, I really can't remember.
Yeah.
How it was.
But I know it was like all one. It was like a 2C that was up top or something like that.
Yeah.
So you were pretty limited in what you could do with it. I mean, by those times it did a lot, but it was sort of on there. So yeah, you were telling me some great stories about that, about working with Hector. Yeah,
Hector was a lot of fun, and he had a great eye. He had at the top of the studio, and you can see like a little U-shaped thing. It was the bubble. You had to keep an eye on the bubble to keep it level.
The bubble, so it was like at the top of the camera almost?
Yeah, you can see it on the top of the post. There was the little level that he used to keep it. It wasn't built into the monitor then or anything close to. Everybody had these little bubbles that you get in a carpenter shop. You just tape here, tape there, and one of the counterbalances on the bottom was the battery port. So you can either swing it a little one way or the other, help balance it.
The system so it worked. But the thing is, he must have, and nothing against Hector because it was a tiny, he must have really not known what he was doing and just put it on and went, okay, well, I guess it does this, and I guess you must have all been learning together. Yeah,
I think he worked on something with Haskell before that. I'm trying to remember the name of the show. It was about Woody Guthrie.
Well, Garrett did that famous shot on the Woody Guthrie movie. Did Hector work on that as well?
He he was a grip. I think he got hooked with it.
So he was there when it first started.
And
I can't think of the name of it all of a sudden, but anyway, the Woody Guthrie story. Yeah.
And that's where Hector got his introduced to it. So.
Oh, wow. I had no idea that he was on that. That's really cool. So you were telling me a story about having to tie a rope off to you?
Yeah, there was a shot where he had to take the Steadicam, walk towards a bluff, and point the camera down 200 or 300 feet down.
So like lean over the edge.
Lean over the edge.
Yeah. And for anybody who doesn't, it's attached to him. I mean, there's an arm that's attached to his body. It's all one piece. Yeah.
And he outweighed me by 50 pounds, and the grips wouldn't do it. They wouldn't tie a rope to him and hold him. They thought it was too crazy to do that. So I said, give me the rope. I'll put it around myself, and I'll just give you I'll feel the tension. I'll just let you I'll let you go, but I'll feel it. And
so you were not only ballast, but you're pulling focus at this point.
Lucky it was a shot where I can just put it on infinity and walk away. So
that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And obviously it worked out. I would for ironically, Tony and I are on the safety committee of the union together talking about this shot today. This would not go over well.
Not well at all.
That's what you did back then. And actually, speaking of the Focus, so the Focus was hardwired back then.
It was hardwired. It was I believe it was called Leitz. Leitz.
That was the company that made it.
Made it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it was a big box.
But it wasn't the sights. This is
maybe
different?
It's sights. Maybe it's sights.
It was like a black box with some green sort of markings on it. One on the front, one. Yeah, okay, sights. Yeah. It was a long time ago. Well, and the thing that I remember about the sights was it had these sliders, and after every shot, almost you had to sort of recalibrate. And I remember the one thing I do remember about that. I never had a sights. I had a different kind, but I remember working with the sights. You'd finish a shot, and the assistant would always come up and look at the lens to make sure that at least at the end of the shot, if you were on 5 feet on the sights, you were actually on 5 feet. So it was a lot of guesswork, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing that anything was in
you had to stay. I learned to pull focus because of that, watching the lens. Even though I marked it on the hand unit, I very seldom looked to the hand unit.
Because you couldn't trust it.
I couldn't trust it. So I would constantly calibrated. It would just calibrate wrong every time. So I had to constantly watch the lens. So I became accustomed of staying on the left side because frequently that side was, they usually work the left side where they put the camera, the Steadicam operator would put it there. So it gave me all the opportunity to work on it on the left side. I would watch the lens, watch the monitor. I enjoyed watching that monitor. I could see when the shift focus, if he was leaving.
Even back then, with that small of a monitor, you could tell.
I can actually watch it.
Amazing.
And in the green tube, it was a green monitor. It was really great in outdoors in the sunlight. You never lost the image.
The best they're teeny. You could. I mean, it's 3-inch diagonal. You could barely see anything. And I don't know if you remember this, but this was my the first Steadicam that I had was number 23, and they made 25s. So it was the Model 1, which you probably remember. And I'm sure I'm sure you remember this with operators, is there was that switch that you turned on to sort of heat the tube up, and then there was another switch that you turned on to turn the monitor on. And when you went to turn that second switch, you sort of did it in the hope that it turned on.
Absolutely.
And then you'd be smacking the side and pulling boards, and there's always a soldering iron on the truck.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every night, because on location, the first they see is the technician, so you had to take care of all the gear. I literally, if something went wrong with that Steadicam, I had it on my bed, in my room, all apart, on the phone with the guys at, I forgot who.
Cinema Products,
telling me what to do. It was every day almost.
It was absolutely, especially back then, but even when my first rig, it was not really ready to work on movies. It's just we did it. But that's incredible. And so did you work a lot with Hector? We
worked a lot together. We did a lot of TV shows, and Man from Atlantis. He moved up around his first TV show that he did.
That's great. I met Hector on ER. Everything, history sort of, when you're younger, things seem different, but he was probably in his late 60s or early 70s. He was the key grip on ER. Hector was always sort of like, he had a lot of flair. Like he'd wear like scarves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He was just like a really interesting cat. And after I got there, and I'm 27, and I'm Steadicam operator on the show, and this is pre-internet for anybody listening, so it's not like I could Google him. And I remember him coming up one day and going, I was a Steadicam operator when it first came out. And I'm thinking to myself, really? And also, he was a little older, so he was a little overweight and whatever. And he would tell me these, and he told me, I think he said that the movie was My Mother, the Car, but maybe it was that, and it was called The Car or something. Hector had a way of telling stories sometimes, and sometimes he would embellish them. Sometimes, so you weren't always sure what was what. And I remember thinking like, okay, great. And I remember him walking away and going, that guy wasn't a Steadicam operator. I've never even heard of him. And then he brought in, not the picture that you showed me, but something similar with him. And it's clearly Hector, and he's wearing the Steadicam. And the great thing is he had that sort of like bravado sort of stance of, look, I'm sure he did it for the picture or whatever. He was a great guy.
He was really good with it. I mean, Jerry Hirschfeld loved the way he can just keep that horizon on an anamorphic frame, just keep it steady.
Which is hard.
It was hard to do.
Especially back then, because they didn't really work well. The other thing I'll say is, he would DP second units for us, and he would light women so beautifully. He had, like you said, he had an eye. I mean, he was really, I remember him telling me that, I think he used to say that the 60 millimeter was the perfect lens to shoot a woman on, and he had all these tidbits. The other thing I remember very early on he showed me that when you're using the wheels, when you go to turn the camera on and off, you take your left hand and you use your pinky and your thumb to hold the two wheels in position. And the funny thing is, every time I do that, which I don't even turn the camera on anymore, but every time I do that now, I think of Hector and telling me that.
It's so true. I mean, all good operators do that.
Yeah.
Actually,
they did anyway. I mean, that's the thing is we don't turn the camera on and off anymore, so you don't need to do it. But I still will, when I'm resting, I'll just do that, and I'll immediately think of Hector.
Speaking of Hector, when he was an operator, I was his assistant working on $6 Million Man. And we did a stunt of Lee Major's double jumping 20 feet off of a parallel into the lake. And we both thought, God, it's awful shallow. But anyway, he did it once, and the stunt guy wanted to do it again. So he did it again, and this time he dove in and didn't come up. So Hector turned off the camera, ran down to the lake, jumped in there, grabbed the stunt double, took him out. His head was split open.
Oh, my gosh.
On the top. Just cut. He hit the bottom. and dragged him out. And in Spanish, he told the craft service guy who was in Spanish, "Get the craft service Jeep here. Get him here. Get here quick." He started applying pressure on his neck to stop the bleeding out of his skull. Wrapped it up, and he didn't let go. He knew when to let go of the pressure. He was intermittent with the blood going to the brain.
Wow.
He threw him in the back of the Jeep, and he told the craft service guy, "Let's go out of the back lot. Don't wait for the nurses or security. Are going straight to the hospital, St. Joseph's in Burbank." They drove straight there and actually saved the guy's life. He would have bled to death.
That's unbelievable.
And, yeah.
Wow.
I think that craft service guy had a job for life there.
I'll bet. That's great. That's an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you were talking about Bionic Woman, $6 Million Man, et cetera, that, like we said, was sort of still the studio system, was it?
It sort of was, but DPs would, a lot of times, would come to the studio and say, "I don't have an assistant. Do you have somebody?" And then I would get a call from Jen, "Hey, you want to work with so-and-so?" I said, "Sure." And that introduced me to a lot of DPs, and either on A camera, B camera. And so I bounced around a lot, so I didn't really have one particular cameraman I worked with.
Okay.
Maybe I worked Jerry a lot, one or two pictures, then be a few months off or a year off, and I'd do something else with them. Yeah. And so that's the way it was then. And
Do you remember what it was like going on TV? Did you go to dailies on TV shows or no?
No. You really seldom went to dailies.
But features
you would, yeah.
Do you remember that as being was that nerve-wracking? Was that a positive, especially Steadicam with sites that didn't come up and everything?
Yeah, it would be nerve-wracking, especially on a big show. You know, want to make sure we didn't have playback in the early days, so you really.
You didn't even have video monitors, really.
Yeah, you just the next day at lunch you knew if you had a job. So it was that's
But there was something nice about the fact that they just trusted you. That if you said it was sharp, it was sharp, and if you said it was soft, it was soft.
When I first worked with Clint Eastwood, he didn't want monitors around. He stood next to the camera. Script gal was underneath the camera, sitting on a stool, and he didn't want anybody watching them. He wanted to be in control, and the first show I did with him was I'd worked some extra camera on shows before that, but the first one I did completely with him was Bird, and we used the Primo Primes the first time, and when Jack says we're going to work wide open with this, I says, "Well, can I have a monitor?" I said, "We're going to have to talk to the man." So I talked to Clint. I pleaded with him. I'd love to have this monitor on the camera so I can actually see when to shift focus. Yeah. Not guessing. He said, okay. I didn't have to convince him.
So he understood what your hurdle was and that you were doing it for the good of the show, really, right?
And it was funny. The first we did a close-up. It was a slight move in and then the actress kind of did a funny move and surprised me. And so after you did that take, I turned to Clint. I said, can I do another one? I think I might have buzzed her just for a beat. And he looked at me and he said to the operator, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, let's do another one, no harm." So went to dailies, and I remember first thing in dailies, it was so dark. Bird. I leaned over to Jack Green. I said, "Jack, you think they can print that up a little?"
Jack Green, the DP?
DP, yeah. And Jack and Clint really work well together.
They must have done 20 movies together, right?
So before Jack even said anything, and Clint says, "Jack, you think we can print that down more?" I said, "Oh boy, am I in for it." So anyway, that take came up, and he's. And I did. I did buzz just for a beat. Yeah. From that point on, when we finished a shot, and he called cut. Clint would say, "How was that for you, Tony?" And he relied so much on the operator and assistant.
That's so great.
And
who was the operator on that show? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was Norm Langley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you told me something about when he moved up. He gave you.
Yeah, he moved up on the show. He came in one day and he gave me his 50-footer. No, 25-footer. It was a 25-footer
tape measure.
Tape measure.
Was that like a Rabone?
It was a cloth, you know, and I still have it.
Oh, that's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
that was kind of a big thing because that's basically saying, here are my tools. I'm no longer an assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. I like that. So working with Clint Eastwood, a good experience.
It was good. I learned to pull focus without marks on Clint. He didn't like nailing his actors down, and it was tough on Jack. We had to hide the marks. I had to use reference marks around the set. One of the days on that show, I was putting down some marks, and I was taping down a mark for myself. It wasn't actually for the actor. And he says, and I hear this. I see this foot almost stepping on my fingers, and I look up, and it was Clint. And I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm putting a mark down for myself. Don't get them up. I don't want any marks. I don't want my actors looking at marks. I don't want them distracted. You're just going to have to do without them."
Wow.
So he was the reason why I had to change the way I pull focus. I had to do line of sight.
Like you said, you were wide open on New Primos, so
Yeah.
there's no depth of field.
No depth of field. So I said, all right, I'm going to have to really concentrate on and watch the actor really closely and watch the lens. So I just learned how to, as the actors moved, my hand moved. Just they went in, I went in. It was I didn't look for marks. I looked at the actor's movement and.
I would imagine that was scary at first and then almost freeing after a while.
Yeah, after a while, I said, you know what, this is the best way to do it.
That's really cool. And just, again, because things have changed so much in the industry. So you're sitting on the dolly, you're physically next to the camera, but are you watching the lens or are you watching the actors most of the time?
I learned to watch my peripheral vision. I watched them both. I watched the monitor and my eye would be constantly circling
The triangle.
the camera. I'd watch. You'd come around to the lens and you'd see make sure the T-stop was right.
Yep.
You go to the focus and back out to the monitor and back out to the actor. You're just constantly circling that camera and making sure everything was correct.
And obviously you're relying on your operator a tremendous amount at that point. Yeah. Because, I mean, those are back in the days where people would whisper because you were right next to them, you're a little behind them, or whatever.
Yeah. And again, too, listening for that and also giving the operators, if you see something, you're like his third set of eyes.
Yeah.
He may not be seeing what's off stage coming in on his right side frame line.
Yep.
And I'd whisper to him, hey, pan right, or just,
Yeah.
you can pick up this. Yeah. And we constantly would talk to
I miss
each
those
other.
days, I have to be honest, because now, as you know, the assistant's sometimes 2 rooms away.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's just a different thing. You obviously worked very, very close with the operator back then. I mean, you were more than a team. You were literally connected almost in many ways. Well, what do you think makes what's the difference between a good operator who can just frame and this and that and the other, and whoever you'd consider a great operator? Are there specific things?
Well, the great operators come off of the camera when asked, how was it? They have an answer right away. They don't give them don't search for an answer. The director wants to hear something right away, or the actor wants to hear something right away. So it's quick, it's better, and things work out faster and smoother. If the operator, when he comes off that eyepiece, he's got something to say. That's
great advice. So basically, almost as you're getting ready to cut, they're already deciding I need to mention something, or I can say we're good.
Yeah. Or once in a while, they would use me. Hey Tony, I'm going to blame you for this one, but I said should go right ahead. So.
That's great.
Just
great.
Take the hit.
Another thing I can't do when they're two rooms away.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's a shared responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes because
I'll tell you, recently on Hidden Figures, I worked with an operator I hadn't worked with before. He was really good, B operator. And Mick.
Was it Jason Nelson?
Oh, Mick Froloff.
Oh, Mick Froelich. Yeah.
Froelich, yeah.
Great operator.
Great operator.
Yeah, great operator. Jason was on A. That's right.
Yeah, so, we had Kevin Costner coming in, and the word from the office was, don't talk to him. Don't say anything to him. They were afraid of him.
Yeah.
I said, this is crazy. He wants to be part of the crew.
Have you worked with him before?
Yeah, at that time I'd done like 5 or 6 films with him. Director, actor, both.
Yep.
So he makes, was a little conscious about how can I talk to him?
Yeah.
And says, so we did a shot. We were in Atlanta shooting at the airport. And I had the 135, the anamorphic, and so it's the zoom. So we were maybe on this particular shot 300 bells. So Mick says, what do you think? I said, well, we should probably go. We got that shot. Let's go in tighter. And I said, well, okay. I says, go tell him. I said, what do you mean? Why did you go tell him? I said, no. I said, he knows what I can do. He wants to. This is a moment where he's going to see what you can do.
And this is film, right? So you're on the camera like you would be normally. Yeah.
So I says, this is your moment to bond with this guy. I said, but he knows me. I've worked with him. He knows what I can do. So what do I say? Just walk up and tell him we were, full figure, and now we're going into waist. Because the next time when we call cut, he's going to look at you and give you a thumbs up. Now you've bonded with him.
That's great.
You told him that this shot is going to be tighter. This is when he's going to put on his best performance.
Yeah.
This is what the editor is going to look for. So, but again, and then Mick says, damn, man, you're right. Yeah, so...
What a great piece of advice, though. Yeah. But look, Mick's a great operator, but I can understand. I've been in those situations. We did. It's not quite the same, but I did I don't remember, it was some commercial for, I don't know what it was for, but it was with, I'm not going to remember any of this. It was with whoever that huge, massive soccer player from England was who was married to a Spice Girl. I can't think of I can't think of his name. Anyway, but we were told the night before, we were told two things the night before. Oh, it was an Adidas commercial. We were told two things the night before. Number one, you can't wear anything but Adidas, and you can't talk to him at all. And I said, okay. And I remember saying to the producer, I said, okay, so first of all, I just want to let you know, I don't wear Adidas, and I'm not putting new shoes on as a Steadicam operator. Like, that's not happening. But if you want, I'll put tape over the logos. I don't care what they look like, but but I'm just not going to put on a brand new pair of shoes and break them in on the day. Okay, fine. And I said, and the other thing is I'm a Steadicam operator, so I'm going to have to talk to him professionally. Okay, fine. I said, but otherwise fine. So at one point, I don't remember what was happening, but something was going on, and he was sitting there doing soccer player things, kicking a ball in the air or whatever. And we were just doing what we do, which is talking and whatever. And I think we started talking about Monty Python movies. And at one point, he kind of went, "Oh, I love that movie." And we all were sort of quiet. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not going to be rude to this guy. And I was, really? You like this movie? And he goes, "Oh, I love it." And so finally I said, "Hey, I just got to tell you, we were told we're not supposed to talk to you. So I just help me out if we get in trouble." And he goes, "Who told you that?" And I said, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. He goes, "This is the problem, is some crew member at some point probably talked to me and I got upset about something, and now they tell nobody to talk to me." And he goes, "I don't want to be like a pariah." And from then on, it was perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it's weird, yeah, right? And I think most people just, look, you've been there. There are some people in this business who are tough and not enjoyable people, like every other industry in the world. But most of them, I think, just want to be respected and be part of the crew, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's a great story. Hidden Figures was a good movie.
It was great. It was great to work on. The director, I didn't know him directly, but he was a good friend of Chad, my son. Chad.
I did Ted Melfi's first movie. St. Vincent. Wonderful,
fantastic
guy.
director.
Wonderful guy and a great filmmaker.
Yeah,
that's a great movie. Yeah. And Jason Elson was on A camera, right?
He was on A camera with Larry Nielsen.
Yeah, Larry Nielsen. Okay.
And I was on a B camera with Mick. And
what a team! That's fantastic.
We had a great time.
And so, look, you probably won't admit it, but you're a big focus puller. Like, do you care whether you're on A or B or C?
Oh no, I don't. I actually on leaving Las Vegas, I was on a B camera with Chad. Was on the A camera.
Chad, your son.
My son, Chad. Yeah. He was on I was on B camera. And so we've worked together a few times.
Yeah. How did he feel about that?
Oh, it was fine.
Was he nervous?
Oh, no, I don't think so. No. But in B camera, it does bring a whole set of responsibility of, making sure, because a lot of times you don't get a lot of rehearsals.
Yeah.
And I remember on one time on a pilot, I can't remember the director's name, but they brought us in really quick, and we just...
You're on B camera.
I was on B camera, and I was on the 11-1, and so we quickly had to get some marks. And then again, we didn't, you don't know what the action's going to be, so you can't, by take two, you usually got it down pat. So we first take, and then I think I blew one little spot. And so the director says, God, God damn it! He says, "Are we going to get this correct? Do I have to replace somebody here?" And everybody, all of a sudden, it was like, I was like ground zero, you know,
All the tension.
and everybody's looking at me, and the AD didn't know what to say, and I said, it was really quiet. So I called the director out by his name. I said, "You know what? That was a great rehearsal. Let's do it again." So it's
sort of the quiet slapback of
yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I was talking to Peter Rosenfeld. Do you know Peter?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was talking to Peter Rosenfeld the other day, and he said something that was really interesting, which is so right, but I never thought about it. And he said, in a weird way, B camera is almost a more political position than A camera is, even though A camera's on all the time, but B camera has to come in and, like you said, like navigate something that maybe they don't have all the time for. It's not the perfect way. It's this and that and the other, and they're still supposed to nail it. So yeah.
And you got and the B camera too has got to remember, they're not the A camera shot, so they can't pick the first spot.
That's exactly right.
So you got to just let the A camera get settled first, and then come in and pick up the pieces.
So on that note, because you've done a lot of B camera and you've worked with a ton of operators, someone who's starting out, and usually when you're starting out, you're in the C camera or B camera role or something like that. A younger operator, pieces of advice for someone who's just figuring it out and in that very almost tougher role sometimes?
Yeah, I would say stay close to the monitor, watch what the A camera guy is doing, and see where you need to pick up a close up for the editor. And see, follow the action, see where your shot should be next. And I'll tell you a great story. It was on Michael Cimino's Sun Chaser, and dolly grips weren't the greatest, and we did the master walk and talk, Woody Harrelson, another actor, and all of a sudden we did across Woody to the other actor with the 100mm lens, and the dolly marks positions were stopped at the right position where we were into above waist. And then on the reverse side, we did it. It was all over the place. The dolly guy, sometimes we ended at knees, and we got too tight.
So he was stopping in the wrong place.
Stopping in the wrong place altogether. And so Michael says, "All right, let's move on." And I says, I had in days before that, I was getting calls from the editor. "Tony, I haven't got the coverage. Mm-hmm. What's Michael doing?" I said, "Well, I think he's more worried about doing it on time versus getting all the shots for you." I said, "He's coming off of that disaster he did." He says he wants to just finish the movie without going over. So I says, "I'll see what I can do." So I knew that reverse on the close up of Woody was really needed. Yeah. So Michael says, we'll move on. I says, "Michael, wait a minute." I said, "We don't have it." And he says, "What do you mean we don't have it? Did you blow the focus?" I said, "I didn't blow the focus, Michael." I said, "We're good. I don't think we have the close-ups of Woody." I said, Woody really needs those I'm saying it like that and looking at Woody. I said, "Woody really needs those close-ups."
Wow.
And Woody caught on. He said, "I think Tony's right. Let's do it again." So,
So you're forcing his hand for his own benefit.
His own benefit, yeah. The operator was afraid to speak up. They were scared of Michael.
Yeah.
But I had to speak up for him.
But do you think that the job that you're doing is more important than you'll get another job, you'll get hired by someone else? I mean, does that come with just experience and knowing that you're secure?
Yeah, I think with age and experience, you lose that fear.
Yeah.
You lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's a big step to take, to do that out loud. Because it is one of those things, and I've done it before too. I've never done it with Michael Cimino and Woody Harrelson, but where once the cat's out of the bag, nobody can deny that there's a problem or there's an issue or whatever. One of the things that happens with me now a lot, not a lot, but it happens with digital. We need to go again. We got to, we had an issue, and I try to, what's the issue? And I'll quietly go over and go, "Look, we had a buzz. How bad was it?" I go, "Look, I'm not going to get into the how bad was it."
Yeah.
It's out of focus at a certain point because, something didn't happen or whatever.
Yeah.
We just need to do it again.
Absolutely,
It's what you're going to put a mildly out of focus shot in your movie? No, let's just, and by the time we've had this conversation, we could have done it. So, but there is that thing of you don't want to throw anybody to the bus, but once it's out there, they can't deny that it's, they can't deny the information.
Yeah.
There's no question.
The same movie. The first day of shooting, we had to abort the shot on the crane because the remote had that they refused to have us prep. They came out with the wrong. They came out with the wrong polarity cable for the Panavision camera. It blew the monitor. We were shut down. Had to get new monitors put on the camera. Meanwhile, they wanted to steal some shots, so they didn't need the monitors. So they just looked through the eyepiece, put it on the back of a station wagon. They went on the freeway without any support. It was so, and they actually took off without me. So they came back. I'm changing magazines, and I handed Chad the magazine. He was the loader, and it slipped out of my hand, out of his hand, it hit the ground, and the magazine cover popped a little bit. Chad smothered it really quick. I said, it could be good. It could be a little flare. We don't know. Let's just send it to the lab like it is and just let them know it could be small, some light flare. The producer was standing there, UPM, and says, he looked at me and says, oh, don't worry about it. Chimino never looks at dailies. Plus, the shots are not scripted. So don't worry about it. I said, well, I got to tell Doug. I got to tell Michael. I said, I'm warning you. Don't say a word. So they came back in. I said, you may have to do that last shot again. I said, I handed the mag to the loader. It fell to the floor, and it might have popped. It might have, ruined the film. And Michael, he was upset. But they went off to do another run. And he came back and said, where's that loader? I want a piece of his ass. He says, actually, he said that. I says, he's gone. He's history. I fired him. I didn't. I told Chad, stay in a dark room. Don't pop out. Don't show your face. He doesn't know who you are. And he's walking around, and he doesn't believe me. He's looking for that loader. So at the end of the day, I told him, Chad, cut your hair, clean shave, come back to work tomorrow. He's not going to know who you are.
That's amazing.
So meanwhile, the producer says to me, Tony, I told you so. You shouldn't have said a word. I says, he's seen Chad? He says, no. I said, just tell him he's the new guy. And so the next day, Michael's looking at that loader. He's kind of staring at him. He says, do I know that guy? And we pulled it off.
That's great.
I pulled focus off the monitor. I resisted doing it because I enjoyed working next to the operator.
Yeah.
But
when
digital,
I
have to.
For digital.
Yeah, for digital. Yeah. When I need to, I'll go to the monitor.
But I would imagine that there are a lot of assistants who couldn't make that jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're lucky. I mean, because you must have been doing one thing for 35 years or whatever it was at that time, and then to suddenly do an entirely different. Do you think it changed the way the focus puller, the way that you pulled focus, or what?
No. Well, the one thing I do notice, it's getting better. I think the guys are getting better watching the monitor. Yeah. I think they're learning, and it's getting a lot. I can watch it on TV. I don't see a lot of delays on focus, and you can tell that they're really paying attention.
I'd agree with that. One of the things that I found, at least at the beginning of the transition to digital, when they got off the camera, was that focus was reactive. Like it was always it was in, but it was always sort of trying to catch up. Yeah. And I think that's because when you were sitting on the dolly, like you felt the dolly grip starting to like move things, and you knew you were moving, so you could be perfectly in time with it.
Oh,
Whereas it's evolving. I mean, there's no question about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Some shots, even when I stand next to the camera pulling focus, I always had my hand on the seat or something on the dolly when I could feel it start to move.
So you were aware. Yeah,
I was aware.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think that's what I was saying is that there was that visceral input that's missing, and visually, there's a split second where you don't know it's moving until it's moving, and then you're almost too late, and you've got to catch up to it.
But I notice the guys are pulling off the monitor are doing a great job. I mean, they're getting better and better.
I think it's sort of it's come back into its own. It was like for a while it was how do we do this, and now it's now I know how to do this.
Yeah.
Did you ever work with any operators you think were bad operators? And you don't have to name any names, but I was just wondering if you did, and I'm sure you did because there's good and bad and everything. If you could maybe speak about some of the things that made them bad operators. And I'm not talking about they can't frame a shot. I mean, that's obviously.
I don't think I think framing it. I think they know how to frame the shot. I think they forget to tell the assistant that what they're gonna do next.
Okay.
If you're free and wheeling around a set, picking up shots, you got to let the assistant know where you're going to go next.
Yep.
I think a lot of times leaving a guy in the dark is bad.
Yeah.
So you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. What about politically? You ever see an operator do something politically that just completely was the wrong thing?
Yeah, occasionally I've seen a B operator take us in a meal penalty
Okay.
because all of a sudden he makes his camera more important than the master.
I gotcha.
And also, oh boy, here we go. We're going on the meal penalty now. So, it's there's time to speak up on time not to speak up.
Yeah.
You can't make the B camera your shot more important than the master. So
Yeah. So not in a bad way, but it's sort of know your place and know your structure in the organization a little bit.
Yeah.
What about you've worked with the biggest actors out there. What about working with actors? I mean, do you have a lot of interaction as the assistant with actors?
More like I try not to. I leave that for the operator. I like to just hold back and be the quiet one on the set and be supportive. But I don't like to take that away from the operator. I think it's important that the operator take charge of the set, not the assistant.
Yeah.
So I'm. Of course, I know a lot of the actors over the years, and we talk. But when it's time to shoot the scene, that's time for the operator and the actors to get.
And what is a good relationship between an operator and an actor look like? I mean, they're all different, right? I guess actually, let me ask you a different question. How does an operator, or you as an assistant, how do you figure out who that actor is and what they need from you? Because some actors don't want anything, and some actors need a tremendous amount, right? How do you figure that out? Do you have any thoughts?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay,
yeah.
That's fair enough. I don't know that I know. I mean, I think I have a thing specifically where on my first day working with an actor. Hopefully before we start shooting, but if we, sometimes it's just a chaos and you don't get a moment. But sometime within the first day, I'll go up and go, hey, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Dave. I'm the A camera operator. Blah blah blah. And I always specifically ask them two things. If you have a minute, just what do you like to be called? Because some people like to be called their character name. Some people like to be called whatever. Do you like to know what the frame sizes are? And the reason I do those two things is I can usually judge by how they interact with me, how much interaction we're going to have, you just get you get a feeling off of them a little bit.
Absolutely.
And also it's something where I'm going, how can I help you? Because I don't want to call you, Bob if your character's name is Jim and you're in your character's, or whatever. And also some people really want to know. And then there's some actors who say, and you've probably seen this, like, I don't want to know anything you're doing. I don't want to know that you're here. I don't, and it's all. I'll share a story with you. I was on Wedding Crashers, and I had to take a day off. I don't remember why, but I wasn't there for a day, and it was Christopher Walken's first day that I wasn't there for. So I came back the next day, and this is the first time I've met him, and it's Christopher Walken. Do you ever work with Christopher Walken? It's Christopher Walken. I mean, to be perfectly honest, he's a little scary.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not as a person, but it's like there's a big, and so everybody knew him. So I walked up. It was like a dinner scene, and he and Rachel McAdams were going to dance or something. And we were on a long lens, we were all the way across the way, but we were on a wide lens. And so I walked across, and I sort of kneeled down. He was sitting, and I said, Mr. Walken? Yeah. I said, I apologize, I haven't met you. I'm Dave. I'm the A camera operator. I wasn't here yesterday. I just wanted to say hello. Oh, hey, Dave. And I said, just quick question to you. What do you like to be called, and do you care about, you want to know what frame sizes are? And he goes, nah, I don't really care what the frame sizes are. You do whatever. And I said, okay, and would you like to be Mr. Walken or Chris or Christopher? And he pauses and he goes, Flash. And I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry? He goes, Flash, you can call me Flash, Dave. And I said, okay. And I got up and I walked away, and I'm thinking, is he screwing with me? Like, I can't call this guy Flash. And then, we're doing whatever, and then we go in for some closer shots or whatever. And I had to ask him, he was getting blocked or something like that. And I said, Mr. Walken? Nothing. Christopher? Nothing. And I sort of steeled myself. I go, Flash. And he goes, yeah, Dave. And everyone's looking at me, and I go, Flash, you're getting a little blocked there. Oh, I saw it. I'm going to lean out. Don't worry about it. Okay, no problem. He would only respond to me with flat. And I was the only one. And people were like, do you know him? I never met the guy before in my life, but that's who he is. I don't know why he wanted it, but that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, it's a connection, right? It's any time you can make a connection, you go for it. And you just go from there. Which I have to ask you about working on Castaway. Are you in Fiji?
Yeah, on Fiji. Fiji, yeah, one of the islands out there, yeah.
And what was that like?
It was hot.
How long were you there for?
I did the first segment where it was before he lost all the weight. And we were there for 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Wow.
And then I couldn't return because I was on a production manager didn't want. My son Darren was getting married. Uh-huh. So I didn't want to leave town. And I says, and then she called, Tony, you're doing this picture in Canada. I said, and you didn't want to come to Fiji. I says, no, I can't. They're gonna fly me home for the wedding. I can take a week off. That's too far away. You guys can't afford that. And so, but I found somebody, and so
the island that it takes place on, was that its own island,
it was a separate island. That island was about a 2.5-hour ride.
Was it just an uninhabited island?
Uninhabited island.
Wow.
And it was a good 2 to 3 hour boat ride. It was, actually the first day going out there it was fogged in. Oh. And a lot of the boats, the whole Magilla was, some people had, radar and stuff like that. You can find it, but some people got there late. So we beached and we offloaded all the gear on the beach, and then they had built huts for us to put all the gear. We left it there,
like the camera room, the grip room, the grip hut. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in the evening, we took the cameras with us that were going to go back to the mainland. We did that for a week or two, and then Bob Zemeckis didn't like all the time it took. He wanted to start shooting morning, sunrise to sunset. So he picked about 30 of us to stay on his boat. They brought this boat in, and we stayed right offshore. So as most of the crew left, the 30 of us would continue shooting. It was some of the key people, a couple of hair and makeup, and so we would shoot till dark, and then we had this boat which was like 200 yards offshore, and we have to row to it, and get on board, and then come back. We leave in the dark, come back at daybreak, and you had to be careful because they had these sea snakes that were on the beach in the morning, so you got to be careful. They didn't move around too fast on the sand, but you had to look for the black and white stripes. So Chad was on a B camera second, and so Frank didn't want to do that. He wanted to go back to shore. So Frank Parrish. Yeah. He was my second.
Okay, so, gotcha.
And so Chad stayed when he was on a B. So we stayed together, and we would service the cameras. And then the other cameras would get serviced by Roger Wall was our prep tech.
Yeah.
At Panish, I brought him on to just
I was going to say, I would imagine you would have to have someone there who knows it inside and out, because it's not like you're going to like Panavision Fiji.
Yeah. So we brought him on as a camera prep technician.
So a show like that, do you just have multiple extra bodies in case something goes wrong?
No, I don't think we did have multiple extra. We just made sure that we had a couple of areas for backup just in case.
Yeah.
That was basically it. And it was, the bathrooms was an outhouse. The food, if you dare to eat it, was hot and sometimes bubbly. Yeah. So we lived on Cokes, Diet Cokes, and granola bars most of the time.
It's not the glamorous life that we all think it.
No, until you got on board ship at night, then you had a meal.
So the ship was like a mini cruise ship almost?
It was like a mini cruise ship. It housed the 40 or 50 people, and it was mutiny time.
Wow.
It was it was like the fifth day of forced call. I was tired.
Forced call, for people who don't know, means you didn't have enough turnaround.
We didn't have enough turnaround. Yeah. By the time I got back to the boat at night, it was 10 o'clock. I had to leave at 4 or 5, get up at 4 in the morning. And get back on the beach at 5 because Bob wanted to start shooting at sunrise.
Yep.
After 5 days, 6 days of forced call for no reason.
Yeah.
We had the actor on an island next to us. The crew was there, there was no reason to do a forced call. I says, so one night I says, the AD says, okay, we're going to do it again. I says, no. I says, I'm sorry. I need my rest. I need my proper turnaround. I'm exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
This is, and we're getting beat up in the sun all day long. I says, so he come over again. He says, how much money you want? It's not about the money. I just need my rest period.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's all I want is a proper rest period.
Well, also, by the way, it's for you, but it's also so you can do your job well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they wanted to throw more money at me. I says, no, guys, put the money away. It's rest period or
Yeah.
get somebody else. So
Did they understand at least?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they weren't happy about it.
Yeah.
But did they understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the very next day, Bob comes up to me and he says, Tony, how did the camera department get to have so much strength?
Zemeckis says
Zemeckis,
this, yeah.
he says,
he's in a position where he's in a place and has to get his movie and et cetera, et cetera. So everybody has their things. So I think sometimes people just lose sight of the reality of things. What about Apocalypto? I have to assume that was a tough movie.
That was a tough movie. And
Mexico? Was it in Mexico?
It was in Mexico, down in Veracruz and inland from Veracruz. We're in a jungle near Catemaco, which was used for other movies, in 50 acres of outrageous jungle, snakes, you name it.
Just completely untamed.
Untamed. Yeah. Every day we had snake wranglers clearing the bush, for the actors to walk on, and walk in. For us to put a camera down. I mean, one time I threw a ferny pad down and Roger set the area down and I put the A camera down and Roger said, well, what's underneath? He picks up.
This is Roger who?
Roger Wall.
Okay.
And Roger, and there was a pit viper.
Oh, geez.
Underneath the.
I don't even know what that is, but it doesn't sound good.
Oh, yeah. It's got long fangs and it's
my gosh.
Almost instantaneous. It's if you don't get to the hospital,
that's it.
It's it.
Oh.
So but it was fun.
Wow.
It was working with Mel was absolutely fun.
Yeah.
He made it so much fun. He's the hardest working guy on a set.
That's what I've heard. And he also just seems like he's just like a big kid going, I can't believe we get to do this, and enjoys it. And
He trusts everybody, and we all had a great time making a movie. I came to the set and can't wait to start doing the work.
That's
it was
so
one
great.
of those kind of shows that you can't wait to get started. And
that was that the first feature with the Genesis, the Panavision Genesis?
That was the first, first one. No, the second one with the Genesis.
Okay.
The one before that was.
The Michael Mann movie, maybe?
No, I think the first one was with Tom Siegel. He did Superman.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And
it was still in its infancy. You were still figuring it out,
Yeah,
right?
it'd never been used in that environment, the jungle,
that's what I was gonna
rain.
ask. Yeah.
So we decided, I told the guys, we can't let this camera bog us down. Just treat it like a film camera.
Yeah.
Throw it on a sandbag, make sure you don't get wet.
Yeah.
But don't make this thing slow you down.
Yeah.
Just treat it like it's a film camera.
Uh-huh.
And we did. And,
Wow.
and we got, we did some great stuff with it. It's a great movie. And
That's amazing. That's amazing. Is there a movie in your career that stands out as your favorite experience?
Well, that certainly does.
Yeah.
A lot of films over the years. Unforgiven was fun.
Uh-huh.
That was a great movie to work on with Clint.
Is it mostly when you think of these? Is it mostly the people that makes it?
I think the people. Yeah. Jack and Clint. They make it so much fun. Steve St. John was the A operator on Unforgiven, Steadicam, and we did some great stuff on that show. And Jack has a great way of working where he lets Steve and I deal with Clint, line up the shots, and he's there listening to every word we say. If he thinks we're going to work our way into trouble, he'll speak up. But other than that, he lets Steve and I deal with Clint.
That's amazing.
And it worked out great. And even after we did a shot, Clint would turn to Steve and I and say, "You guys got any ideas?" And we'd say something, and he would do it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That level of trust is phenomenal. So obviously he knew you knew what you were doing.
I had never used the Panotape before that show.
Okay.
In that show, I didn't have the Panotape.
Just tell people what a Panotape is.
Panotape is it's a focus assist. It tells you reads the distance, helps you pull focus.
So you're still telling the lens where to be, but this gives you an idea of where the distance people are at.
Yes, it helps you. Mine was, before that, was just line of sight. Using my hand-eye coordination, guessing where the focus is. And that showed because the eye lines are so close. Sometimes I couldn't be next to the camera, or I couldn't even see the lens. So I was using a remote focus more often. And
because the actors were right next to the
actors
camera?
are right there blocking the lens,
Yep.
and I was looking all over the place trying to find. I had to put a witness mark above the camera position where the film plane was, so I could see.
So from far away, you could tell where the film plane was.
Yeah,
Amazing.
And so after that, I said, "Let me try this Panatape." So then I liked it, so I used it after that. But Unforgiven there was no focus assist on that one, and it turned out good. It was a lot of wide open and
That's amazing.
And all I had, and no monitors, all I had was this funky little anamorphic monitor. It was a gray box. You ever seen that one? It was
No.
a tube about this.
Yeah.
It was a monster sitting on top of the camera, but at least it gave me a shot at what the frame was.
Yeah.
And I had to keep moving it around to see it. So,
have you ever been in I'm sure you have, but a situation where the director and the DP are not getting along and you and the operator are in the middle of that?
I'll go back to Sun Chaser.
Okay. By the way, you said Cimino had he just come off of Heaven's Gate? Is that what you're talking about?
his last film was Heaven's Gate.
So he was in trouble.
He was in trouble. That
was like the most expensive movie ever made at that time, or something like
Correct.
that. Right? Yeah.
We had a full crew the first day of shooting. At the end of the first day, Michael didn't like the operator. He fired him the first day.
First day.
So it was for the next 3 weeks. Doug was doing the lighting. Doug Milsom.
Okay, DP Doug Milsom.
And so he says, "You rehearse the shot, and I'll just jump on a camera." He says, "But I got to rehearse the focus." I said, "Rehearse? Don't you know that?"
Oh, so he was saying you be the operator during the rehearsal, and then I'll come on and do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not able to get your focus marks.
I couldn't get my focus, so I had
There's a
Frank.
reason there's two jobs there.
Yeah, so I said, "Frank, come pull focus. I'm going to operate the shot." And for 3 weeks, I was doing that, and I says, "It's getting tough. 100 millimeter anamorphic, 135, 180 is not fun to
So
be."
you were operating the rehearsals, and your second assistant was pulling focus?
Yeah.
And then for the shot, you jump on 180 millimeter and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So that went on for about 3 weeks. And I finally says, we have to have a full crew. You can't be doing this. We're in town.
3 weeks. Wow.
Yeah. So I says, let me bring somebody on. So I brought somebody on. I was standing by the set, and up walks the operator, and he had a Hawaiian shirt on. I won't mention his name, but he had a Hawaiian shirt on, and he says, "Who's that goofy, good-looking guy with the Hawaiian shirt?" He says, "Oh, he's your operator. Get him out of here. I don't want to see him."
Cimino said this.
Cimino. So we sat on the truck for 2 weeks, the operator.
Oh, my God.
We're still operating in the same fashion.
Yeah.
So I said, finally went to Michael. Michael, this is crazy. I need to have a rehearsal as well. It's not fair to me. And to Doug. And so let me bring in an operator. And so I hired Doug Ryan. Mm-hmm. I said, "Doug, when you come on, you may sit on the truck a day or two before Michael will warm up to you. Finally,
don't wear a Hawaiian shirt."
Yeah, don't wear Hawaiian shirts. Finally, Doug, became acceptable. So it was kind of weird, but
wow. The thing that I'm hearing over and over that you've done throughout your career is that you're just honest with people about what you need to do your job, and if there are repercussions to that, then there might be, but otherwise, you have to be straight with people.
That's true. Jim Brubaker just passed away, producer.
Oh, okay.
He started off as a driver captain. I met him years ago as a driver captain on one of the Rocky shows, and then he became a big-time producer, and Dean Sembler worked with him quite a few times. But one thing about Brubaker as a producer, you can ask for whatever you want. As long as you're honest with him, give him a great answer, a good reason why, he'll give you anything you want. Anything that will save time and make the movie better. Jim was for the crew. So, and that's a key point. You got to be honest with the producer, UPM. Don't bullshit them. Mm-hmm. They know bullshitters, and honesty gets you a long way.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with that. And also the other thing is, look, 99% of the time when you start your job, it's making your deal, right?
Yeah.
And so if you start playing games when you're making your deal, it's just setting a pattern for how it's going to go. Actually, and the flip side is for me, if the producers start playing games with me, I immediately go, you know what? This might not be a good fit because I don't see this going well.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Jim came to my rescue one time. I was on Kicking and Screaming, a small little movie,
Yeah.
but the UPM wanted to make a name for himself. He was trying to beat me up as far as the rates, so I called Jim up. I said, Jim, can I make my deal with you? This guy is not being reasonable, and actually, can I make the deal for the entire crew?
Oh wow,
one man shopping, one stop shopping, and so let me have all the rates,
yeah,
and it's a done deal. So. And that happened. So and after that, I never had to deal with him.
That's great. That's the way to do it. Do you remember The Last Waltz well?
Yeah.
Was that just amazing being around those musicians? I mean, how long was that movie?
The actual concert was just one evening.
Oh, okay.
And I did some extra work on the stage work that Michael Chapman did later.
Yeah.
We had 7 operators, 7 DPs. Every DP was an operator. I mean, every operator was a DP.
Really?
Famous DP.
Wow.
And we were up at the Winterland in San Francisco. It was the last performance before they're going to tear it down.
Oh, wow.
So that's the reason why it was so important.
Yeah.
And Vilma Zsigmond was high up, and
up in the rafters or
whatever. Yeah, up
whatever.
in the rafters. I was on stage right with Laszlo Kovacs.
Oh my gosh.
Bobby Burns was on stage left. Behind the cameras was Hero and Doug Myers. And in the audience was Fred Schuler. Yeah, the other DP. He did Quantum Leap. He became a producer. Michael Watkins.
Michael Watkins, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
That was the crew.
That must have been wild having all those people together, and also, by the way, being operators. I mean, not being DPs.
It was hilarious. I mean, these guys were just enjoying themselves.
That's
I mean,
a blast. Scorsese just did something like that with the Rolling Stones, where I think he had these huge DPs come and be operators.
I think you may be right. I'm not sure.
Ago. I think Andrew Rowlands was actually.
Yeah,
one of
Andy
them.
was involved.
Yeah,
in
he was
it.
telling me.
And Tom
actually,
Lackland.
you know what
Yeah.
Andrew Rowlands told me? At one point, I don't know if they were in between shows or whatever, but he said it was just them in the room, so maybe 30 people, the assistants and the DPs or whatever, and that the Stones came in and sat down on the stage with guitars in their laps and just did an impromptu concert for 2 hours. He said it's one of those things where I can't believe I get to do this.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I would signal to Laszlo and say, hey, we got so-and-so coming on stage. So we'd pan around and he'd catch him coming through the curtain and say, hey.
You'd let him know because he's got his eye on the eyepiece. He can't see. Yeah.
So he'd whip around and get him and he'd say, hey, grab that Bud Light can out of his hand.
That's great. That's fantastic. But those are the things that's the cool part of this industry, right? Is you get to do things and go places. I mean, you're living in a boat off an island in Fiji. That's not something that happens that often, and going to the Last Waltz. But let me ask you a question. A newer operator comes out. Someone, knows what they're doing on a level, but doesn't have, only has a couple of years in, is still learning. And they got on a camera with Tony Rivetti as the AC. I know this wouldn't happen now, but back in the day. As a camera operator, you sort of have to run that pod a little bit, but it's a team effort, of course, right? How do they work with you and utilize all of the information that you have, all of but still feel like they're doing their job and not just turning to you every minute and saying, Tony, what do we do now? Tony, what do we do now?
No, it's I'd let them do their thing, and if I see something obvious, I would say, I'd speak up.
Yeah,
but I try not to.
Well, I don't think you would, but there, it's. I guess what I'm saying is, I think it's intimidating for. Every operator at some point gets their break, right? And they're surrounded by people who are much better than them. Let's be frank about it, or better isn't the right word. Have more experience. So, do you have any advice for someone who's coming into it and gets in that situation? Like mine was ER. I got thrown in ER, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I was surrounded by all these people who were great, and they helped me. I mean, there's no. I'm perfectly open about that. But do you have any Is it just being open, or is it what is it?
I think just being open, just being relaxed.
Yeah.
More of a relaxed atmosphere. I don't come on with a lot of baggage, just be relaxed.
Yeah.
I remember taking over a show in Texas. Stars Fell on Henrietta with Bruce Surtees was the DP.
Yeah.
So I was working on G.I. Jane, and I just finished it up. And I get a call from David Valdez, the producer. He says, "When are you available?" I says, "Maybe in a week." He says, "Can you come to Texas and take over the show?" I said, "Sure." "Can I bring my is it anamorphic?" And he says, "Yeah." "Can I bring my lenses?" I said, "Sure." So I said, "Bring anything you want." He says, so I brought all my lenses with me. And then the operator said, "God, I'm glad you're here. Now I know I won't lose my job." He says, so everybody was concerned. The pressure's on everybody with people with not have enough experience in every category, every position.
Yeah.
So it's
that's cool. You have a very unique thing that you've told me about in the past, where at the end of your career, for up until COVID, I think you told me you were working with NASA. Can you just tell me about that? Because to me, that's like, to do something film and NASA, those are like the two coolest things in the world for me. Yeah,
I got brought into, actually the very first job was to do a shot of the Virgin plane that gets dropped.
Oh, is that the Branson's? Richard Branson space, whatever.
Space thing. Yeah, I got a call, and they were after me for a couple of weeks. I said, I really haven't pulled focus on telescopes. I really don't. I know what a telescope is like. There's no infinity. You lose focus, you're out forever. Okay. So, so it says, no, you're going to do fine. I'll show you. He was, gosh, I forgot his name. Who brought me on. He was actually an assistant who was moving up to operator.
Okay.
So he wanted me to assist him operating one of these cameras.
And you're talking about it, you're on the ground on some massive telephoto.
Yeah, I had 3 cameras, 3 telescopes. One was a 4,000 millimeter, a 2,500 millimeter, and a 1,500 millimeter lens, and I'm pulling focus on all 3 of them. I'd never used this device before, but I had a button to switch from one camera to the next. Wow. So because telescopes you can't ride them all. You could pull focus, but they're all going to be off eventually because each telescope
is calibrated differently.
Calibrated differently. So anyway, so they asked me about the shot. When the shot was over, I said, "What did you think?" I said, "Well, I was able to read Virgin, but because of all the atmospheric."
There's a lot of movement, right?
A lot of movement. And I thought the operator did a great job keeping it in a frame, and especially the final shot, this nose to tail of flame. I said, that was really impressive. And I said, but I actually read Virgin.
You're watching a monitor, I'm assuming, right? And
yeah, I'm working, pulling focus off a monitor.
Yeah, okay.
Then I could switch from camera to camera. So I had to keep tweaking and tweaking.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's a lot of pressure. That was the first job I did for this subcontractor. A day later, I get a call from the owner of the company. He says, "How'd you do that?" I said, "We've been hiring guys and they can't pull focus." I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "I really don't know. I'm surprised you even to get this call and tell me it was sharp." I said, "I'm amazed myself." So it's he said, "But I says, well, we'd like to keep you around for a while." I said, "I'd love to, but can we talk about how to staff this thing? Because I think I can bring some Hollywood."
Get 3 focus pullers in there at least.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, we got to break these cameras up. We can't you can't do that to one guy. You'll get better results. One focus puller on each lens.
Yep.
So we did. We started taping cables. We started bundling cables. I mean, it was like opening, like a Jack in a Box. When I opened up the case, all this stuff popped out. Nothing was labeled right. Nothing was. So we did that. For the first few jobs, Roger and I, we just bundled cables up and taped things up. This goes here. This is this. This is that. Yeah. And then secondly, I said, "You guys are working around the clock yourself. You're burning bridges. You won't let us assemble a camera.
Yeah.
You're so concerned about secrecy."
Oh.
I said, "We're here to help you." I says, "We can assemble that camera. You guys can rest and go do your job with NASA and talk to people, and we'll get it all ready for you." So finally they listened, and we started streamlining our company a little bit, and they brought on more and more people from the industry I brought on Bobby Brown.
And Chris Harhoff did some, right?
Yeah, Chris Harhoff worked for SpaceX.
Yeah, SpaceX, yeah.
Yeah, he did that. And a bunch of assistants we brought on.
So let me ask you this: 44, I think we said years. No, 48 years in the business.
Yeah.
You're married. You have kids.
Yeah.
How do you make? Because you obviously were all over the world all the time, right?
Yeah, married 59 years.
Wow.
Same, my high school sweetheart.
That's great.
And
how do you make that work?
It's up and down. I mean, and nothing's perfect, but she wins all the battles. That's one thing.
Smart.
Learn to say yes, and but yes, it's and we took the kids with us everywhere we could.
Oh, really?
So they traveled. I mean, our 25th anniversary I did with Clint in Africa, White Hunter, Black Heart. So when we finished shooting in August, we were going to, at the end of August would have been at the time we got married. So we ended up back in London. So my wife and I planned to we didn't want to have a 25th anniversary, so we thought we'd have it with the kids. So we brought the boys to London, and we gave them Eurail passes. So from London, they went to Europe. They went down to Italy, spent some time with the buddies working on one of the Godfathers. I can't remember which one. And then when the show was over, we spent a week in Paris. And then they came to Paris and met us there. And I left them my room, our room there for a week. So we left and left them, gave them a week roaming in Paris.
So basically, it sounds like you turn the reality that you're not there a lot into a benefit on the far side. So at least something good comes out of it. Yeah,
they learned to ski with us on movies that we went spend in Sun Valley, Idaho. They just.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 sons.
All in the business, or?
Yeah, the oldest is Darren. He's a first AD.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Tony Jr. does stills, and Chad is a focus puller.
And have you ever all worked together?
Yes.
When you work together, is it? Are they working with Dad, or are they just working with another guy?
They're working either second unit or
yeah. But is it weird? I mean, is it weird working with you, or is
Oh
it,
no! I mean, I've worked. Darren's been the first AD on many of Bob's movies.
Oh, okay.
So I've worked with him as a first AD, and I just
you don't ever pull rank on him?
No, I don't. No, he calls me. He either calls me Pop or Tony. I don't know. I call him Darren, but
that's cool.
And I just treat him with respect.
Well, Tony, this is such a pleasure, and there's such a wealth of information. I'll leave you with this question, which I sort of leave everybody with. If any advice for younger camera operators on how they can be successful, what can work for them, what they should do?
I got to tell you, it's funny. I learned it really quick. Just by chance, I got thrown into a shot to operate by Dean on a movie. And I think it's so important to read the script, know what's important in the script. So I got thrown into to do this shot the guy was getting out of a helicopter. He was carrying a suitcase. So right away I saw him jump out of that helicopter with that suitcase. I knew that suitcase was important. So when it started to get too tight, I went down to the suitcase. That was the cut to the next scene. And it worked out. I mean, just knowing what the pieces are by reading the script, you'll be successful, I think. It's important to read that script.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.